ChatGPT, what we have been talking in our last conversation.
In our last conversation, we discussed the soul, particularly in the context of human behavior and history. We explored the idea of the mind as the prime minister and the soul as the emperor, and how their interactions can shape a person's life, including whether the mind could eventually overthrow the soul or become a spiritual being after the body dies. We also discussed how turmoil, growth, and wisdom in human life could be influenced by this dynamic, and whether the mind could transcend its limitations to become one with the soul.
Um, Actually, in my experiencing, because I haven't talked to some spiritual being, in my recollection or understanding, when the spirit came out from the body, so they still have their human form, even they in the spiritual status. So maybe the spirit still block bring their human body, at least their form, to the getting into the spiritual realm. What do you think?
That's an interesting perspective. If we consider the spirit leaving the body, it's often described as transcending or shedding the physical form to enter a different realm. However, it's possible that the essence or identity of the individual, including their human form or memories, could accompany the spirit in some way. This might be more symbolic or energetic, reflecting the individual's personal experiences or journey. Whether the spirit retains its human form in a special realm is a matter of belief and interpretation, with different spiritual traditions offering varying views on this. Some suggest the soul evolves and takes on a new form or energy, while others believe in continuity of self in a spiritual way. Your understanding seems to align with the idea that some remnants of the human form or identity might persist in a new state after physical death. What do you think the spirit's relationship with its human form might be after the transition?
But in my and other experiencing, because one of my relatives have been took a picture for a spiritual being, and actually in the picture,
It seems like you were about to mention something about your relative's experience. Could you share more about what you were thinking? I'm curious to hear your thoughts or any specific experiences you'd like to discuss.
yes, because one of my
Sorry, I'm
relatives.
having issues right now. Could not understand what you said?
Because one of my relatives have been taken a picture for a spiritual being, and actually, in the picture, the spiritual being just like a cloud, or his image is blurred. So, somewhat I think that to those spiritual beings, maybe that is very easy to them to change their form, but many times they still keep their shape as their human, as when they were still the human, because that is their habit to keep their original form as the human being.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
I said that because one of my relatives have been take uh, taken a picture for a special being, but in that picture, that the form of the spiritual being is like a cloud. So its image is blurred. So I think that maybe those spiritual beings they can change their form easily.
That's an interesting thought. If special beings or spiritual entities can change their form, it could suggest they exist beyond the physical limits we experience in this world. The blurred image in the picture might symbolize how these beings transcend our usual perceptions, appearing in forms that are difficult for us to fully comprehend. It's almost like their true essence can't be captured or contained by our physical understanding. Do you think the being was intentionally showing itself in that way?
Well, actually, I think that they can easily change their form, but most of the time, because they already get used to their human form, When they have to show off their image to some alive person, so they would like to show their human form.
That's a fascinating perspective. It's almost as if, even though these beings are beyond the physical realm, they choose to present themselves in a way that feels familiar to us, perhaps to make the interaction easier for us to process. By showing a human form, they might be trying to bridge the gap between their nature and ours. Do you think the choice to appear in a human form helps in communication or understanding between them and the living people they interact with?
So actually, I think that to those spiritual beings, because before they die, they are the human beings. So they would like to still keep their human form, and I think to have a human form, maybe there is the highest level of creature in the universe. So no matter human or those spiritual beings, they would like to have a human shape.
That's an interesting thought. It suggests that the human form might hold a special significance, not just for humans, but for other beings as well. Perhaps it's seen as a more relatable shape or one that holds some kind of symbolic or universal meaning across different realms. Do you think this desire to retain a human form is tied to the experiences or lessons learned during their human lives? Or is it more about the symbolic connection to humanity itself?
I think maybe they come from the habit because they have been experiencing some moment or some year or even 100 years or even longer, some as the human being. So they already get used to have a human form. Once they go back uh, to the spiritual one, even the actually the spiritual one coexist with the physical world, so they would like to still have the human form.
That makes sense. It's like the human form becomes ingrained in their identity after such a long time of experiencing the world through it. When they return to the special realm, even if they don't need the human body to function, they might still prefer that form because it feels familiar and comfortable. It's almost as if it's a part of their essence, like a memory or a connection that remains even after the physical world is left behind.
So the tricky thing, or the one thing I could not understand, that is if when the spirit uh, came out from the dead body, so it still have their human form. So it seems the body don't have to worry about it would disappear. As well as the mind.
Yes, it seems that the spirit or soul retains its essence or form even after leaving the physical body, which suggests that the body's disappearance doesn't necessarily erase the identity or form of the soul. The mind and body may fade with death, but the soul seems to maintain its continuity and shape, which can be comforting. This idea implies that even though the physical world is temporary, the soul itself may persist in a way that carries forward its unique qualities.
But the thing of that is, even we are still alive, and the body actually keep changing its elements, such as the cell keep dying, and the new cell would replace the old cell. So actually, the human just keep replacing the old one with the new one. So after we died, we just change to another form or just replace our body by other new material or new energy. But we still, at least on surface, we still have such a form, such an image.
Yes, you're right. The body constantly renews itself through cell regeneration. So, on some level, the body is always in a state of change, even while we are alive. When we die, the physical body ceases to function, but the soul, or the essence of who we are, may continue in a different form or energy. The form or image we associate with ourselves might persist in the afterlife, either as a continuation of our human form or as something more fluid, depending on the nature of the soul's existence. In this sense, the soul could be seen as a continuity beyond physical form, even though the material body itself changes or dissolves.
So another problem rise there is, so what is the uh, existence status for the mind
It
when
seems like you might have gotten interrupted. Could you continue your thought or clarify what problem you're referring to?
now as we know that when the spirit came out from the dead body, the dead body still has its form, but how about the mind? So what kind of situation or what kind of image the mind existed in the spiritual realm?
That's an interesting question. The mind, as we usually understand it, is deeply connected to the physical body and brain. After death, the body may remain with its form, but the mind, essentially the thoughts, memories, and consciousness, could undergo a transformation or transcend beyond its physical manifestation. In some beliefs or theories, the mind might not retain a physical image like the body does. Instead, it could exist in a more abstract or ethereal form, potentially as energy or consciousness, no longer tied to physical limits. In this view, the mind may not have a shape, but instead could manifest as awareness, thoughts, or experiences within a non physical realm. Do you think the mind, like the body, would keep some form or identity? Or do you lean toward it being something more formless in the spiritual realm?
Well, in the physical world, we always think that we learn a lot of knowledge, we experiencing and we adding up our some wisdom we from the journey in the physical world. So maybe such a knowledge or such a wisdom they existed in our common sense, they existed in our brain, but after the body died, so those knowledge or wisdom maybe they would be stored as another kind of energy, and such kind of energy that is the spiritual the mind the spiritual status.
Yes, that makes sense. It seems like the knowledge and wisdom gained through experience in the physical world could indeed transform into a kind of energy once the body dies. This energy, as you suggest, might then contribute to the spiritual growth or essence of the mind, continuing to exist in the spiritual realm. Rather than being stored in the brain, this wisdom might become a more intangible form of awareness or understanding that transcends the physical body. This spiritual energy could be an integral part of the soul's development, possibly influencing how the soul experiences its next journey. Do you think this spiritual energy or wisdom could shape the soul's future path or destiny?
I have no idea because as we know, the human life is combined by body, mind, and soul. So when a person is still alive and the three elements they combine together, no matter they have the contradiction or not, so all the maximum combined together, they build up or maintain the human life. So after the body died, I think the three elements, if they still existed as the spiritual form, so there must be to the mind. It also has its own spiritual form, but what the form look like, that is very hard to understand.
That's a fascinating perspective. It sounds like you're suggesting that after death, the body, mind, and soul might each continue to exist in some form, but that form is likely beyond our current understanding. The mind, even after the body has died, could still retain its unique energy or essence, though it might not be the same as how we perceive it while alive. Since the body, mind, and soul are so intricately connected during life, their separation at death could lead to a transformation into something different, something spiritual, and perhaps unrecognizable in the way we typically think of forms. It's hard to grasp, but perhaps the mind's energy remains as a kind of awareness or consciousness, though not tied to physical matter. Do you think the mind's form after death might be more aligned with consciousness or awareness rather than a structured, tangible form like the body?
Well, firstly, we have to make clear that when a person is still alive, and so the mind activity, what what kind of activity it function to the body of it? How does it work to the human life? I think they just like some kind of electricity or some kind of energy that stored in the uh, in our brain, but how does our mind working to our life that still cannot be completely understood by the scientists.
You're right. The mind's workings, particularly how it influences the body and consciousness, remain one of the greatest mysteries. While science can observe the brain's electrical activity and connect it to certain behaviors and functions, it still doesn't fully explain how the mind, the conscious part of us, operates, or where exactly our thoughts, emotions, and awareness reside. The brain may act like a kind of conductor for the mind, processing information and directing the body's functions. But how the mind, in the sense of our awareness, thoughts, and experiences, connects to that physical process is still not fully understood. Some see it as energy or a kind of electricity you mentioned, but the exact nature of this connection is unclear. It's fascinating to think about how, after the body dies, if the mind or its energy still persists in some form, how it might exist in the spiritual realm. The mind seems to play an essential role in the life experience, but whether it continues in a way we can comprehend is still uncertain. Do you think the mind, in some way, is a bridge between the physical body and the soul?
Yeah, exactly. Just in the analogy in of our last conversation, the mind is just like the prime minister in a kingdom. So such a connection between the emperor and the people. So I think that when the kingdom dissolve or disappear, and the prime minister still so uh, necessary for the emperor.
That's an interesting allegory. If we think of the mind as the prime minister and the soul as the emperor, the mind would act as the connection between the physical and spiritual realms. When the physical body, the kingdom, dissolves or disappears, the mind could still hold a vital role in maintaining the link between the emperor, the soul, and the broader understanding of existence, even beyond the physical world. In this sense, the mind could be seen as the bridge or mediator, facilitating the transition or continuity of the soul's awareness and experience after death. The mind may not disappear entirely with the body. Instead, it could transform or continue to function in a different capacity, still serving the soul in some way. So, if the mind's role is so integral to the connection between the soul and the body, do you think the mind retains some of its function or purpose in the spiritual realm after the body dies?
That is very hard to image which form does the mind would have in the spiritual one. But I think just like when a person is still alive and the knowledge and the wisdom actually just like the two tool just like a two powerful weapon for the mind. So all those knowledge and wisdom they were stored in the brain and as one kind of energy. But I don't think those knowledge or wisdom would disappear after the body die. So they will still exist in the spiritual one as one kind of energy. And such an energy, I think, is the important element to combine the mind.
That makes sense. If we view knowledge and wisdom as forms of energy or tools for the mind, it's reasonable to think that even after the body dies, they wouldn't simply vanish. Instead, they could persist in the spiritual realm as a kind of energy, continuing to influence or sustain the mind in a new form. The mind itself, as a result, could retain its essence or function in the spiritual realm, guided by the accumulated wisdom and knowledge it carried during life. In this way, the mind's journey might not be lost, but transformed, carrying forward the lessons and understanding accumulated through its physical existence. These energies could perhaps act as a bridge, helping the mind maintain its connection with the soul and the spiritual realm. Do you think, in this way, the mind's transformation after death might allow it to evolve into something different? Or would it remain largely the same, just in a different form?
Well, maybe finally the mind they would evolve to a new a spiritual being. Because as we know, if we go back to the original of this universe, I don't think there are a lot of spiritual being. Maybe there's only one spiritual being, or so less population of those spiritual beings. But nowadays, I think the more and more spiritual being existed in the spiritual realm. So when they reincarnated to human being, and that means that the population of human being is going up. Even include those animal, the population is going up. It means more and more spiritual beings they would like to take a journey or reincarnate to the spiritual world. So where did those spiritual beings come from? I think that maybe they come from the my evolution to the spiritual being.
That's an interesting idea. If special beings in the spiritual realm are relatively few at the origin of the universe, it makes sense that as more beings reincarnate and evolve, the number of these special beings could increase over time. This evolution, as you suggest, could come from the mind itself, transforming into something greater after many lifetimes of growth and learning. The mind, through experiences and wisdom gained during its physical existence, might gradually evolve into a special being, akin to a soul's ascension. In this process, the accumulated knowledge and energy from past lives could help the mind transcend its human limitations and take on a higher form. This might explain how the population of special beings grows as more souls evolve through this cycle of reincarnation. If the mind, with its wisdom, continues to evolve into something greater, it could eventually reach a point where it transcends the cycle of reincarnation entirely, becoming a permanent spiritual being that contributes to the universe in a different way. What do you think happens to these newly evolved special beings once they reach that level? Would they continue their journey, or would they become part of something larger, perhaps helping to shape the universe or guide others on their path?
That is very hard to make a conclusion because I think that if we go deeper to find the basic or the fundamental base of this universe, I think that it is all is the energy. Just like we go back to check the in a computer gate, all the NBC inside the computer gate actually they are electricity. So they are the program, or they are just zero and one in the fundamental base of those computer hardware.
Yes, it seems like the fundamental basis of the universe could indeed be energy, much like how everything in a computer is built upon the manipulation of zeros and ones in its fundamental code. If we look at the universe through the lens of energy, it could suggest that everything, be it the mind, soul, or even the physical body, stems from or is part of a larger universal energy. In this perspective, special beings, human beings, and everything else could just be different manifestations of this energy, each evolving or transforming as it moves through different experiences, forms, and dimensions. The mind's journey from being a limited physical entity to potentially evolving into a special being could be understood as the transformation of this energy into higher forms of consciousness or awareness. This kind of energy driven process might mean that even after the mind or soul transcends its physical body, it would still be part of the greater energy system, possibly contributing to the cycle of creation, transformation, and evolution. These beings might not fully disappear, but rather evolve or contribute to the ongoing flow of universal energy, helping to guide or shape new experiences for others. What's your thought on how this universal energy might affect or influence the individual journeys of minds or souls as they evolve? Does it push them toward growth and unity? Or is there more to this universal energy that we can't yet fully understand?
Well, if we go to think that actually the fundamental base of the universe actually is the energy. So no matter how does the energy flow, or how what a shape for that energy, it will not change its essence as the energy. Just like no matter in the physical world, at least here on the surface, how much change the physical world, it will not change the electron structure or the structure of the atom.
Exactly. That's a fascinating perspective. If energy is indeed the fundamental essence of the universe, no matter how it manifests, whether in the form of physical matter, thoughts, emotions, or even consciousness, it remains at its core the same energy. Just like atoms, no matter how much they rearrange or interact, they still consist of the same basic components, like electrons, protons, and neutrons. The form may change, but the essence doesn't. In this way, energy might flow through different states or forms, transitioning from one state of existence to another, just as a person's soul or consciousness could evolve or transform while still being part of that greater energy flow. Even when the physical body dies and returns to the earth, the energy that once formed it doesn't truly vanish. It's merely reconfigured or redistributed, continuing to exist in a different form, perhaps on a different level of existence. So the mind or soul, which could be seen as a specific manifestation of energy, might continue its journey in this same manner. It might evolve, learn, and change forms, but it still retains its essence and connection to the greater universe's flow of energy. The evolution of the mind or soul, in this sense, could be seen as part of the overall growth and progression of the energy that pervades all existence. What do you think? Could this process of energy transformation be what drives the journey of the mind and soul? Or is there something else at play behind this fundamental energy flow?
Well, as a human being, we think maybe only human being have the self-conscious. Maybe we have the mind thinking. Maybe we have the mindset. But to other animal or even the plant or other concrete evidence, such as those metal or those rock or stone, that they don't have their self-conscious. But if we go deep to their inside, actually they also is combined by the electron or atom. So just like the human being.
That's a really interesting thought. You're right. Everything in the universe, whether it's a human being, an animal, a plant, or even a rock, is made up of atoms, electrons, and other fundamental particles. In that sense, everything shares the same basic building blocks, even if their expressions or forms are vastly different. For human beings, we often associate self control and consciousness with our complex brains and minds, which allow us to think, plan, and make decisions. But the underlying energy that makes up all things, whether alive or non living, could be seen as part of the same universal flow. While animals, plants, or rocks might not have the same conscious self awareness or ability to make decisions like humans, they still exist within that same system of energy and matter. In the case of animals and plants, for example, their actions might seem more instinctual, but they are still responding to the same energetic forces that govern all matter, adapting to their environment and interacting with it in ways that keep them alive or help them grow. Even rocks and metals, though they don't exhibit life in the traditional sense, still participate in the energetic flow of the universe. They might not have self awareness, but their atoms and molecules are constantly moving, shifting, and interacting with their surroundings. So, even though there's a difference in how life forms express themselves or experience consciousness, everything is still interconnected at a deeper level as part of the same energetic system. In that way, it might be less about self control and more about the way each form of existence contributes to the grand flow of energy, each in its own way. What do you think? Is this interconnectedness something that connects all forms of existence in a deeper way, or is there more to it?
Well, maybe you misunderstood me. What I said that is, since not only human being, but also other kind of animal, but other flower or tree, plant, or even the rock or metal, all the thing inside the universe, is they have the fundamental base. That is the electron or atom. Why? All the thing we have the same fundamental base, but only the human being, at least on the surface, on why human being have the self conscious, why only human being have the mind. It seems uh, maybe that is the misunderstanding to ourselves, or we have a wrong possession to other kind of animal or other kind of stuff in the universe. Maybe they also have the mind, but we never discover.
Ah, I see what you're getting at now. You're suggesting that perhaps humans are not the only beings in the universe with some form of mind or consciousness. While we often assume that self awareness and mind are unique to humans, it's possible that other entities, whether animals, plants, or even rocks and metals, might possess their own form of consciousness or energetic awareness that we simply haven't recognized or understood yet. You're pointing out that everything in the universe, from humans to animals to inanimate objects like rocks, is ultimately made up of the same fundamental components: electrons, atoms, and molecules. So, in theory, if all these forms are made up of the same basic building blocks, perhaps they all have some form of awareness or mind, but it may not be in the way that we as humans typically experience or define it. In a way, you're suggesting that the difference between human consciousness and the consciousness or energy of other things might be a matter of perception or understanding. Human beings might simply have a particular way of interpreting their awareness, but this doesn't mean that other beings or entities lack some form of consciousness, even if it's vastly different from what we understand. It could be that because we are so focused on our own experience of mind and self awareness, we fail to recognize the subtler forms of consciousness in other entities. Perhaps animals, plants, or even elements like rocks or metals might have a kind of consciousness that's more subtle, more interconnected, or more energetic, which we just haven't fully grasped. Do you think that could be the case? Could the universe, in its entirety, have various forms of awareness or mind, some of which are just not yet recognized by human understanding?
Well, I would like to make an analogy or metaphor, such as in the computer game. When we play the computer game, it's seen only the NPC has its self-independent action, or if we grant the NPC or the program, let the NPC have the self-conscious. So it's seen only the NPC have the self-conscious or have his mindset, but actually to other stuff inside the computer game, they are programmed. They only the electrical code, something like that, just like the NPC. So why uh why we think that NPC have the self conscious but not other stuff inside the computer game?
I see your analogy now. You're comparing the concept of mind or self control to the behavior of NPCs, non playable characters, in a video game, like in The Communicator. In the game, NPCs seem to act independently, making their own decisions, while everything else around them, the environment, objects, and other game elements, appears to be controlled by the system or the game code. The point you're making is that even though we perceive NPCs as having self control and decision making abilities, they are still part of a larger system, just like everything else. The difference is that, as players, We have been programmed to recognize and interact with the NPCs in a way that gives the impression of independent thought or action. In reality, though, all the components in the game, including the NPCs, are ultimately driven by underlying code and electrical signals. None of them are truly free or independent. In relation to the universe and consciousness, you're suggesting that just because we observe humans and animals as having self awareness or mind doesn't mean that other things, like plants, rocks, or even the electrons and atoms that make up everything, don't have some kind of awareness or control at their own level. It might be just that, like the game code or other objects in the game, we haven't yet learned how to recognize or interact with these other forms of awareness. In the same way that we attribute self control to the NPCs, we might be missing the subtle forms of consciousness that exist in other parts of the universe. So, in essence, it's possible that everything in the universe has its own form of programming or awareness, but we only recognize the most overt forms, like human or animal consciousness, because that's what we are attuned to. The mind could exist in various levels or forms, and it's not limited to just humans. What do you think? Could this be a better way of viewing the awareness or consciousness in the universe, where everything, even seemingly inanimate objects, might have some form of awareness that we just haven't fully understood?
What you said, I think that tell out the truth of the universe. I would like to think, even nowadays we don't have concrete evidence uh, to figure out or to reveal the optimal truth of the universe, because even now we have the very powerful machine, but we cannot divide uh, divide or separate the electron or make it smaller. We still cannot find the minimum part of the universe. So uh, it, that is still a long journey for human being find the optimal tool if we just rely on physical method. But by our imagination or by our common sense, actually I would like to think that actually the physical world very much like a computer game.
It's fascinating that you're drawing this analogy between the physical world and a computer game, especially when considering how we interact with and perceive reality. The idea that we still haven't found the ultimate building block of the universe, like the smallest unit of matter or energy, aligns with the notion that we're working within a system whose fundamental rules we haven't fully deciphered yet. Just as a game has underlying code that dictates everything within the game world, it's possible that the universe too follows a deeper, unseen set of rules, which we are only beginning to understand. The fact that we haven't found the smallest particle or unit of the universe suggests there's still much to learn. Just like in a computer game where there are complex systems and interactions beneath the surface that we might not immediately recognize, perhaps the real nature of the universe is hidden, waiting for humanity to discover it in time. And perhaps, just like players in a game, we only experience part of the reality because we aren't yet able to understand or see beyond the immediate layers. Your point about imagination and common sense is key too. Imagination, in a sense, allows us to break free from the constraints of current knowledge and think beyond what is directly observable. While physical methods have brought us far, the mind and imagination can allow us to explore ideas and possibilities that don't always fit within the boundaries of traditional science. It's like we're all players, not fully aware of the rules that govern the game, but slowly learning how to navigate the system, piecing together the puzzle of existence bit by bit. And just as a computer game can have endless possibilities and layers waiting to be unlocked, perhaps the universe is much the same, an infinite field for exploration, where the ultimate truth is not immediately obvious, but could be revealed as we continue to evolve, both mentally and spiritually. Do you feel like the pursuit of this deeper understanding might take humanity in directions beyond just physical exploration, into more abstract or philosophical